distant planet, a great kingdom was ravaged by beings who came from the future. Born with the strength of a black tiger, the courage of an eagle, the power that made him more than any hero.
They will hold her in the Black Fortress. You must have help.
I shall be your king in the world of dungeons, dragons, and Dar.
Thieves, bandits, fighters, and brawlers.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sleazoids, the podcast where we go down the rabbit hole of 20th century genre fare from the most influential canon classics to the trashiest exploitation films we can get our hands on, and invite you to tag along in helping us create a canon of sleaze. Each week is a double feature grindhouse style where we discuss two films loosely related by subject, genre, actor, filmmaker, or franchise, and at the end of each episode, along with our honorary Sleazoids, which you can become by subscribing on Patreon.
Do it!
We decide on all the official ratings and rankings for every film that we cover. Patreon subscribers also get an on-air shout-out and 2 bonus episodes every single month, which we've been doing for over a year and a half, so there's something like 40 bonus episodes waiting for you if you haven't made the jump yet. Think about it. Speaking of which, we had a ton of people make that jump.
Yes, thank you guys.
This week, so we got a lot to go through. Sorry if we don't. Usually we got like one, so I'm like, thanks, buddy. I give you a real thing, but we got to rip through them today. That is, one was Joseph Shackley. Welcome, Joseph. Malcolm Hoyt, Christian Rowell, Ethan Dunlap, and Ed Mack. So thanks so much to you guys for joining us and getting all the bonus episodes. Hope you guys are enjoying. Leave a comment on the Patreon. Maybe we'll get back to you there as well. So, yeah, that's the one plug. The other plug, iTunes. If you guys are listening on iTunes and you guys have been digging the show, make sure to give us a good old rating and review over there. It helps us find new listeners. And, yeah, we're on every podcast listener of choice by now. No one has yelled at me. So we are everywhere, I think. So if you're listening somewhere and you think it's inconvenient, whatever podcast listener of choice that you actually want to, search us there. You'll probably find us. Those are your plugs for the week. I'm your host, as always, Josh Lewis, and joining me is my co-host,
Jamie Miller. Welcome back.
Welcome back to another week. I think 2 weeks ago would have been the last time you guys would have heard from us, and we would have been talking the year 1991 with special guest Oliver Leach, or also on Twitter known as Bakun. He brought with him, if I remember correctly, Bill and Ted, Bogus Adventure.
Yes, lots of fun.
Which we had a lot of fun talking about, and Alex Winter from the set of Bill and Ted 3 listened to it and tweeted that episode out.
So stoked.
I am praying that he had words for Keanu on set.
Showed it to the God Among Men.
Yep, but we don't know. That guy is not online. Probably the smart one of all of them. And we paired that film with the Akira, Netsuhiro Otomo. Hope I got that right.
I think you got it right.
His underrated 1991 sort of like comedy horror film about Japanese nationalism, and that was World Apartment Horror.
Yeah, very strange comedy, but
not a lot of people have seen. Pretty hard to find. There's a really like triple bootleg rip you can find on YouTube.
Video.
If you are interested in checking it out. But 1 week ago, Patreon listeners, you guys would have got your bonus episode, which we did on John Frankenheimer. We did The Manchurian Candidate from 1962, as well as his follow-up movie Seconds from 1966
heavy hitters.
with Rock Hudson. Yeah, 2 pretty brutal, paranoid political thrillers. So if you haven't heard that episode, again, patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast. That was last week's episode.
Seconds is just one of my favorite films of all time.
Yeah, Seconds is one of the best films we probably talked about on the show so far.
Without a doubt.
Very, very happy to finally get around to checking that one out. But this week, we have another special guest for you guys. Calling in from the We Hate Movies podcast, as well as the, did you say TJ Hookers?
It's Hooked on TJ Hooker, and it's available at tjhookerpodcast.com. I tried to do something that was the most niche thing in the world. A TV recap show about a show that no one has seen in forever or will ever see. So, and we go through it episode by episode. It's kind of like a mad science experiment.
That's amazing. Well, I am now going to be going out and checking that out at some point because I have no idea what that is.
No.
But welcome. That's amazing. And we have with us Eric Szyszka. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Good. We're doing great over here. Thanks for coming on. Now, as it goes, we have the guests bring on their double feature with them. So, Eric, which 2 films have you brought with you, and why do they pair together?
Okay, so I'm kind of reliving like watching television in the 90s here, because I grew up watching a ton of these like schlocky fantasy 80s things, and Beastmaster is an amazing kind of proto Conan the Barbarian-esque low. It's like people eating dirt in the desert, kind of low budget. And I paired it with KRULL, which is like the high budget regal fantasy of lords and ladies, and I just love them both.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, we're very happy to get into both of those. I believe Beastmaster is 1982, KRULL is 1983. We're very glad to have Eric here from We Hate Movies. I was just listening to your guys' live shows that you guys were doing. You called it the, what was it? The
East Cage tour.
The East Cage tour, Nicolas Cage movies you guys were doing. Well, I was very glad, and I immediately had to queue it up when I saw you guys did one on Knowing, which is one of the most baffling and one of my personal favorite Nicolas Cage movies that he's done. That's the one where Nicolas Cage Googles 9/11.
Fuck yeah.
Like, oh, what was that
Does
thing?
he solve it all? Does he solve everything?
It has been permanently ingrained in my brain, the image of Nicolas Cage going 9/11. What is that?
I feel like I've heard of that before.
Googling it.
So all the world's problems do get solved in the end, and I recommend checking it out.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I love the Cage.
Exactly. But this week we are going into 80s fantasy trash on the lower budget end and the higher budget end. And I think we're just going to jump right into it. We are going to start with Beastmaster.
By the way, by the end of this podcast, everyone listening and us are going to own a van and paint a wizard on it.
Absolutely.
Hell
It's already
yeah.
on my to-do list.
Conquer your fears. Face the unknown. And discover the incredible link between man, animal, and all that is phantasmagorical. In the world of Dungeons, Dragons, and Dar. The Beastmaster. The epic adventure of a new kind of hero.
All right, so we are talking The Beastmaster. It is a 1982 sword and sorcery fantasy film directed by Don Coscarelli. Sounds right. Starring one Mark Singer, Tanya Roberts, John Amos, and of course the late, great Rip Torn, who I believe just passed away in the last month or two, I think, pretty really? Recently. So it was interesting actually to see Rip Torn, because I feel like I had only seen him in comedy movies and The Insider before. So I was like, all right, the guy seemed like he had an interesting career, and here he really likes the smell of burning children flesh. Which was an interesting character choice for him. But the Beastmaster largely follows a guy named, I can't believe this is his name, just Dar.
Dar, yeah.
Just powerful.
Yeah, his name's just Dar. And he's the Beastmaster. He's the son of a king, and he had a weird thing happen to him at birth where 3 witches did a good old prophecy where they were like, the son of that king is going to fuck you up, Rip Torn. And he's like, okay, I'm going to kill that son, I guess. But he does it by teleporting him out of his mother's womb into the womb of a cow, which gives him the power of beast.
Yeah.
And he just goes beast mode.
Convoluted plan.
Yeah, I don't really know if that's how they intended to, does that kill someone? I mean, I've never tried to teleport someone into the womb of a cow, but I don't.
I would assume.
I don't know the logistics of do some people just can't survive that, I guess. It was the idea that it would get crushed in the womb of a cow, but instead he is birthed, and he is gifted powers to telepathically speak and command his fellow beasts.
Yes.
And very similar to Conan the Barbarian, he goes on a mission of revenge to get revenge on the people who
Slaughtered his whole village.
Yeah, slaughtered his village. So I think it's implied they killed his mom, and they think that he killed his dad, but his dad later comes back in the movie, and his dad is actually just kind of like fucked up and like a drunk or something.
He's also blind.
Yeah. He's also blind, right? And yeah, I think that's basically the trajectory of that film.
Yeah, the first thing that I noticed, especially when he starts traveling on his kind of vengeance journey, is the like just the straight up reference to Conan the Barbarian when he's like on top of the mountain. He even does, I think, the same sword stance and everything where he kind of points it out. He doesn't look nearly as He-Man, obviously, as Arnold, but the guy gives a bit of a decent physical performance.
I have to know how this played out because Conan and the Beastmaster both came out in 1982.
It's
right.
It's
yeah,
the
but
same
they started promoting Conan the Barbarian in like 1980. Like they were making it, they were trying to get it made forever, and I think KRULL maybe has a similar trajectory where they started making it in like 1980 and they finally released it years later.
Okay. Because it's just interesting because we've done Conan the Barbarian on the show. We did Conan the Destroyer on the show. We to go back to Conan the Barbarian, like we were really surprised at how that movie's reputation makes it think it's a little bit of more of like a camp Flash Gordon type experience.
Yeah,
and
which
we watched
is more
that.
The sequel because the first one's pretty gritty.
Yeah, we were watching it and we were like, wow, this is way more moody and grim.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I mean, despite the fact that whatever Arnold's skill as a performer is, he looks the part of the actual sort of like pulp, almost painting sort of look that they were going for.
Absolutely.
And there's kind of like a rage to that film that I don't know. I ended up feeling it a lot more than I expected to. And also when you have actors like Max von Sydow and James Earl Jones kind of in the periphery.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
there was a lot more class to that film than I expected.
More so than Beastmaster.
Yeah, and then so Beastmaster feels
So
like the
dark,
movie
by the way.
people told me that I was going to expect with Conan a little bit.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, Conan, you think it's going to be more trashy, but this is way more trashy than that. But still, it's trying to maintain that kind of Conan balance. His body's fine. Mark Singer. I don't want to body shame him, but
Oh no, yeah, he's killing it. I mean,
it's like Arnold meets like Mark Hamill or something.
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, the guy definitely like Arnold's physique is just so like cartoonishly huge.
Yeah.
And it looks perfect for the role of Conan. This character is just massive. And it's just
he got that way, remember, by just pushing a rock around in a circle, I believe.
Yeah, yes.
That's how he got that body.
That is it's a montage of him growing his hair and muscles getting bigger as he just like spins a giant
For
wheel
years
around.
and years.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah, it works out perfectly. Yeah, funny enough, I actually think it was the last time we talked to Arnold too. It was Chris Cabin who brought him on. We talked Pumping Iron and Last Action Hero was what we were talking.
Those are both great films too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we ended up talking about Arnold a lot on this show already.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to see because I got to be honest with you. If we're gonna like be honest right up front here, I did not get much out of Mark Singer as an actor. Now, I haven't seen anything else that he's been in or any other performances that he's done. Is there anything else notable that you can think of?
Yeah, he was in V, I believe, back in, this is like a mini series or whatever in the 80s. So
oh wow, okay.
It's around the same time. You'll see also with the film KRULL, the actor is also kind of missing.
Like nobody watched these decently budgeted fantasy films and were like, that's the guy for my next movie.
Yeah.
That just didn't seem to happen.
Oh, wait a second. Now the CW is a television network I've heard or whatever that I've never seen, but apparently exists. So I just went to Mark Singer's Wikipedia page, and apparently he's in the 3rd season of Arrow.
Amazing. All right, so he's getting that superhero paycheck.
Yeah.
That's television work. That's not,
Yeah, not too bad. Nothing wrong with the CW if you can, if you just like shows that the reason all of them exist and the reason there's any dramatic pull for any of them, I've said this before, is just that everybody is insanely hot, no matter what age. If you're playing the 6-year-old character, you're playing the 20-year-old character, like you are a fox on every level. So then the drama of every one of those shows is that anyone could fuck anyone at any time.
Yeah.
You don't know who.
Dripping with
Constant love
sex.
triangles. Yeah.
Doesn't matter like what the basic plot is. I mean, they're all trashy genre riffs in some capacity of superheroes or fantasy or sci-fi or horror, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, now they got what, Archie, but scary and hot. Like
Yeah,
that's their big show right now. That's their big show.
That's hilarious.
So you know what? If that's where Mark Singer ended up, good
I
for
think
you,
it
buddy.
suits him, judging by this film. He's a pretty, we'll say, dirty guy. Like the thing that he does when he introduces himself to the woman, at first I found quite charming in a sense, just kind of, well, not maybe charming, but just funny, and because he's using his tiger controlling powers to convince her that he's saving her or whatever, and I thought that was a little bit funny and kind of a meet cute, and then he goes and starts to show us that if she didn't fight back, he'd probably just sexually assault this woman. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, so is this where your character's at?
Yeah, this is like the year zero equivalent of like a dude going to a park with a dog and trying to meet ladies.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, as his journey kind of like unfolds, which is just like him mostly seeking revenge against, which again, I do have to wonder, did they read the script for Conan or something? Because again, it is like a cult.
Yeah, it
who
does
like
seem
murdered
very
his
similar, at
his
least with the
entire
plot
family
points.
or his like makeshift family anyway,
Yeah.
which is the exact same plot that Conan goes through, except it's James Earl Jones brutally decapitating his mother and then stealing his father's sword.
Right.
And it was interesting to me that this was like the exact same plot, just with like a little bit less money, with an actor who is somehow a little bit less expressive than Arnold is.
Yeah.
Um,
And they try to add all like the cutesy stuff too, a little more. You have the animal.
It's a little bit more
moments and
kid-friendly
things.
for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
except
Krull
here's
is
the
that
thing.
too.
The Krull definitely. This one though, I went into it thinking it was more kid friendly, but there's like 4 pairs of boobs in this movie. So I mean, it's definitely not
Yes,
like
you're
4
right, but
kids.
It's still rated PG or something.
Are you
Yeah, it is.
serious?
Yeah, it's a PG
I
movie.
believe
It's like
so.
back in the 80s, they were just like, whatever, kids, see those boobies. Like, there you go.
Yeah.
Holy
Yep,
shit.
You got those. You got
Because
it.
you have impalement, you have like decapitation, you have it's crazy in that regard.
Yeah, it's interesting because the violence.
Like you said, it was almost a sexual assault when they met.
Yeah, yeah, that's how they meet.
Why not?
And then even to convince him to actually help them, she's basically like, "I'll be your girlfriend," kind of thing. Like the scene on the boat where he's like, the little kid goes up to him and asks, "Can you help us? We need to fight these people." And he's like, "Why don't you get your cousin to ask me?" And you're like, holy shit, this guy is a piece of
dude,
work.
don't you also want revenge on these people? Like, I
Yeah,
thought this
it's
was the
like-
mission, but
he's
instead
purely
he's
just
like,
motivated by his wang instead.
And those people are the Jun, which is like a marauder horde of these guys. And to bring it back to like Conan the Barbarian, you're totally right, because I believe there was a snake cult in that.
yeah,
and,
snake sex cult
Yeah.
who want to have orgies with the princess or something.
And now, and to contrast, now in Beastmaster, it's they're also quoted as having a heathen religion, and it's more dealing with human sacrifice. And man, there's a lot of weird shit in this movie, and I love it. Like for some reason, Rip Torn has a bird nose, like this prosthetic nose.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
That's
And
true, yeah.
His name is Mayax.
Is it? Did they say his name at what point?
Yeah.
I didn't
Oh,
even
that's
hear it.
awesome. That's a great
In the
name.
credits, it looks like it's Max with 2 A's. So I thought it was like, oh, is this Mayax? No, but it's Mayax.
Oh wow.
And
That's awesome.
did you know who they originally tried to cast as Mayax?
No.
Klaus Kinski.
What?
They couldn't agree on the money, so they got Rip Torn instead. It's fantastic. And supposedly, I think Demi Moore as well.
Yeah,
and
Demi
instead
Moore
they-
was definitely
yeah.
supposed to be the
Was she supposed to be the
Tanya
other girl?
Roberts character.
Oh,
yeah, the
okay.
slave girl. I think her name's Kiri in the film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because isn't that, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that the mother from that 70s show? Well, or not the mother, but the neighbor's mother?
Oh, I think you're right.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
because I'm like, I swear I've seen this girl before.
There's also a Bond girl in View to a Kill.
Oh, okay. Awesome. I didn't know that.
God damn. Yeah, this was a weird movie. I had a weird
was.
experience watching this movie.
Yeah.
Because I gotta say, going into it with like no nostalgia for it, this was my first time watching it. I
Yeah,
had
me
heard
too.
about it, but it was my first time watching it.
This is like my 500th.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
and I did hear that it got a huge it didn't do particularly well at the box office, but it got a huge reputation playing nonstop on TBS and HBO. It was just like a movie that you turn on and like people watched it on cable TV.
One of
just
those
all the
man
time.
movies?
Yeah, it was a man movie, I guess. but it's weird because to me, like Mark Singer didn't read to me as like the most. He's kind of like he's got like just a different look to him.
Sure,
like
yeah.
he wasn't the most macho look. He wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger. He doesn't look like an action star to me. He kind of just.
I agree.
I mean, he's fit for sure,
He
but
didn't
he still
need
has
to
like
be.
a goofy energy to him. That, like,
Yeah, a little bit.
He doesn't have to be fit if his panther and his eagle and all
That's
these
right.
other things are fit.
Yeah, there you go. He's already
Exactly.
has his cunning and his strength and whatever the other one was that I forget.
yeah, because he's got an eagle. He's got his panther with him, and then he's got two ferrets. Well, I was like,
Yes.
We're the best.
Which they both rule, by the way.
Yes,
and I
amazing.
genuinely, this isn't even saying that much like I'm not being too harsh when I say this, I don't think. The ferrets are the best performers in this movie, I think.
Oh yeah,
They are unbelievable.
they're very good.
They have a great character journey.
Wonder
too,
where they were
because
trained.
They start out trying to steal Dar's like belt and like sword and money or something.
Yeah, they're
And
They have
mischievous.
a rocky relationship at first.
Yeah, and then eventually, like, it leads to, like, Dar falling in quicksand, and the ferret comes to save him, and then, like, he almost lets that one ferret die, and he goes back into the quicksand and saves. And by the way, the quicksand is also tying these two films together.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, there
I was
are
gonna
two
say
moments of
quicksand was a big deal in the '80s. They
Yeah.
were really
Big
worried
deal.
about it.
They're really fucking scared. But yeah, I gotta say, I love the two ferrets. They're named Kodo and Podo.
Yeah.
And they're very important to where this film eventually gets to, because I will say, as I was watching this, and, you know, we talked a decent amount of fantasy at this point on the show, because we've also done Legend. We've done the Conan films. We're still waiting on doing, I think we're trying to do Excalibur, and there's a couple other Borman ones we haven't done that we're waiting on. But watching this, I was like, wow, I think this is the fantasy film where I've been like the least engaged with the sort of like the characters and the setting, despite the fact that I was really engaged by most of the animal stuff, which is like the draw of the film, right?
Yeah, I was kind of there too.
And
And
the setting is nothing, by the way. It's just like an open desert. There are a couple
yeah,
of towns
in
we
California,
see.
which and it's obviously California. Like,
And we do get when they show like establishing shots of towns and stuff. It's like these miniatures, and I love that. It's like, no, this doesn't exist. Now we're just going to do a quick, like a close-up shot on Dar going down this corridor of this town that is massive. Don't worry about it.
yeah, they strategically never show you much, and it's the same rule with the action in this movie too, because a lot of it is just like they shoot it really close and just kind of hope that, like, you know, because you can't see some of it, your brain's just going to kind of hopefully do the rest for it. Because even some of the sword fighting, I don't know if Mark Singer just couldn't fight, or they couldn't find a convincing stunt double for him or something. But like when he's doing sword fights and stuff, like there's like 3 to 4 cuts on like a lot of the different moves that he does, and it's cutting between like a super intense close up of like his biceps and his face, where like you can't see the action that he's doing, and then
He's so fast.
yeah.
And I handle Dar.
And I was just like, man, they are really shooting this to cut around the fact that they have a pretty limited budget to, you know, be able to do convincing action or even have convincing sets. The one set it looks like they did build was the temple.
Yes,
Which
they
again-
put all their money into, I think.
Yeah, they put all the
absolutely.
money into Rip Torn's temple that he's burning children on top of.
Oh yeah, and the one kid he throws down this like slide. It's like a stone slide into the fire of this temple to sacrifice this kid, and it reminded me of A Christmas Story with the whole guy.
Dude, I'm so happy you said that, because that's exactly what I put. Because he grabs the thing and starts trying to poke the kid into the fire. Just like the Santa with the boot. Oh my god, that's so funny, man.
But instead Dar with the eagle does rescue that initial child.
By the way,
Which is a great shot.
Well, yeah, totally by accident. My favorite shot in the entire movie is the dummy of the child being carried by the eagle.
Just swinging through the wind.
And I think it's partially a cartoon, too. I think they added a little in post of drawing on top.
Oh my god, it's
it's so good.
Because again, to make it convincing, they have to do so many different cuts of this action happening. And there's a 3-second shot, and that's it. You get like a close-up of the eagle's claws grabbing the cloth, and then like the eagle's close-up as he like takes off.
Yeah,
and
then
there's
like a point of view shot.
Exactly, and there's 3-second shot of a wide shot of the eagle just carrying like probably 150 pound child. And you're just like, that makes no sense, but I love that part, so I will say that part.
I love that.
A lot of the animal stuff in this is probably like the stuff that I had the most fun, because again, on a technical level, in comparison to other fantasy, that maybe it's just because we've watched so much of like the more technically impressive fantasy. I mean, when we did Legend, we were talking about the set designer for Alien as well as Ridley Scott directing that, right? So, and when we did Conan, you know, you at least had you had John Milius, and I forget who was shooting that one, but I remember it being a pretty impressive cinematographer as well. And just like the look and the budget that those guys were able to accomplish for those films, like really contributed hugely to the way that those worked. And seeing one where they didn't have any of that. So the thing to be the most technically impressed by is, I think, actually the performances they were able to get out of these animals.
Yeah, they're incredible, honestly. Like, especially just the back and forth between the two ferrets. Like, even when there's a great sequence where they're trying to cut the rope, and then one of the ferrets is like, "You're not gonna cut my buddy," so he runs up and jumps and bites him in the balls.
Yeah,
it's just like these all the really humorous and kind of adorable moments definitely come from the animals. It's where I felt the most.
Yeah,
it really, because with the characters themselves, I don't feel like I felt a lot, and I don't even think I really liked Dar very much as a dude. Like, it was hard to be on his team.
They definitely got more human performances out of the animals.
yeah,
that's a
more
good way of putting it. More
humanity in the ferrets.
I definitely found Mark Singer as Dar like completely unexpressive and unreadable, to the point where I actually was chuckling a little bit. There were a couple times where there would be like, you know, there would be a dramatic moment, and like for example, there's a part where he's talking to these two pilgrims who are trying to, like, you know, get him on the side of the people and fighting back, you know, this sort of like child sacrificing cult. And for some reason, despite the fact that that's the cult that killed his people that he's seeking revenge of, for some reason he's not convinced to do it just yet. Which is like the complete opposite of Conan, who is like, his entire mission is like this rage-filled, you know, decapitated my mother. Yeah, exactly.
That's his motivation.
That's because Dar is a thinking man's Conan, you know? He's hanging out with the animals. He's got different ways to communicate. He's not all just knock down the door and murder.
Right. But it's interesting when he's talking to them, and it would, you know, they'll say something to him, like ask him a question, like, you know, man, like now that, you know, you saved us or whatever, like, who are you? And it's just like an extreme close-up of his face, completely blank stare, and he does nothing. And then sometimes he'll do that blank stare and he'll just nod, and I feel like they just captured him nodding because he wasn't really sure like what the next thing was to do.
Keep in mind he was born out of a cow.
Yeah, that's true.
There might be some defects there.
Yeah, he might miss a few social cues.
His face, he's got like a cow mind.
Yeah. and he has the immortal line, "I'm Dar."
I am Dar.
Yeah, I am Dar, and that's just kind of it. That's just what he says.
Good
They're
enough
just like,
for me.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
Whenever I saw this movie.
Yeah, the only time honestly he's expressive is when he's super horny.
Oh yeah, then he's just lively and ready to go.
Yeah, there's like a scantily clad slave girl around, and he's like, you know, creeping on her while she's taking a bath, and
his
he's
charisma
like,
goes from 10 to 100 easy.
But yeah, like his villains are the I think it's the Jun, anyway, Jun, I believe, and they're all masked except for Mayax, the high priest.
Right.
So those guys got no emotion, and insofar that even that sequence you were talking about earlier with the cutting of the rope, they are making like Bane from Robin, Batman and Robin. You know, like they got like a serum
That's a good comparison.
clearing out their brains and making them like mindless monsters. So Dar is like so much more human than his opposition, really.
It's true. Like when we're comparing it on this level, it's like the bare minimum that Dar does is slightly more expressive than the completely mute, like weirdo child sacrificing cults.
Yeah.
So that's good. But again, not as expressive as Podo and Kodo.
No.
Who, while they're like stealing keys and shit and like fucking people up, complete joy. And they get the best moment near the climax of the film when Dar, I think because the slave girl makes out with him, he's like, okay, I guess I'll get revenge on the slave cult again now. He's been convinced.
Yeah.
And he approaches, and the funniest thing about this scene, which should be horrifying, because this is a PG movie, it's for kids. The funniest thing is when Dar approaches and he infiltrates the sex cult, which again is the exact same scene as when Arnold Schwarzenegger hilariously puts on like a priest robe, thinking that like he can blend in with the priest, despite the fact that his physique is like, again, we've mentioned this tons of times on this show, but every time someone crafts a movie around Arnold Schwarzenegger going undercover, it's the most unintentionally hilarious thing that happens because he's the least undercover person in any room he's ever been in.
Yeah, I also like the snake.
Exactly. And it's the same scene where he approaches and he puts on like, you know, like a little outfit and he joins the people in the mass to kind of like watch the temple ceremony going down. And Dar, he doesn't immediately like get involved. He lets Rip Torn kill a child first. I don't know if he thinks that he's just like he's not serious about it or not. But Rip Torn just like picks up a child. The child's screaming and he tosses him into the flames, and the child dies. And the whole time, Dar has just been standing there watching this happen.
Like, oh, maybe I should make moves now.
And it's only when Rip Torn picks up the second child that Dar's like, oh shit, I guess maybe I should be doing something, or like, why am I here?
I'm pretty sure I think that's the child too that tries to climb up.
Yeah,
so
that's the child.
He does throw him in. He wastes that much time. He throws another child in. It's just this kid's a little more, ready for it.
Yeah, he's like, that kid deserves to get saved because he's like trying to live.
I think Dar is like, okay, they killed one kid. They're going to conserve kids. They're not going to kill kids every day, right? Because they're not a dime a dozen nowadays. Kill all the kids you want. There's tons of them. They're being replenished constantly. But in this Californian desert, they're hard to come by. So you think you conserve your kids?
Yeah. So Dar was just like, he won't do another one. No way he'll do another one. Yeah. Exactly. But he goes up there. He does this hilariously, weirdly choreographed. I guess just like nobody could sword fight, where like they're just kind of blindly swinging at each other, and eventually the guy just straight up misses Dar, so he like kicks him off the temple. And
sword fighting hadn't been invented yet. This is like that early fantasy before like the Middle Ages, so people just swung stuff around.
Yeah, it's very clearly inspired by like sword and sandal, like Bronze Age kind of stuff. Nobody knew what they were doing; they were just crawling over each other. Metal. Yeah, seeing what stuck, And I think at this point, this is the climax of the film when he's getting revenge.
Yeah.
The dad's up there, right? The blind dad is up there.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I want to stop you really quick because I want to see what you guys thought about the digestive bat creatures.
Oh, right. Yeah, those were badass.
They come in early in the film. They're peppered throughout, and they play a big part at the second climax. For some reason, there's two.
There's two.
Movie.
Yeah, there's two climax. Yeah, when the first one ended, I was like, wait, I was checking the time because I was like, there's like 25 minutes left in this movie.
Yeah, they just killed off the priest.
Yeah, so these bat creatures are like man bats or whatever. These tall fucking dudes with like these wings that they keep. I guess their digestive their stomach is in their wings, and they grab people. And they suck all their flesh off of them, and they open up their arms again, their wings, and just bones fall out. Pretty cool.
It's very cool. I did like that a lot. I just was there any backstory to them at all, or is it kind of just like a creature that's within the environment, the world that they've created?
Yeah, were they beasts? Could he control them?
I don't think so. It was like a tense standoff there because he was like, "Oh shit, what are these dudes?" Because they saw him, some dude. They had like a guy in a cage. I guess saving him for later. Leftovers. I think that was
their wings were full at that point in time.
Yeah, they're saving him for midnight.
Yeah.
That guy gets out. He gets eaten, and then Dar's there, and all these man bats or whatever these things are, and they see that the eagle likes Dar, so they worship the eagle for some reason, and
that guy's got wings too.
Yes,
that's really the only correlation that I can make.
They give Dar this bitchin' amulet that has a falcon on it. Doesn't come to much of anything. I don't.
No, it doesn't end up being as much use as like the ferrets, you know.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Who are crazy.
One in particular.
Well, yeah, they would not have been able to
I'm
do
upset
any of the
about.
shit that they did in this movie without the ferrets.
No.
Because those motherfuckers were stealing.
The ferrets are the heroes.
I actually think the ferrets have the biggest body count, and they also
they might, man.
they also
have to do the count.
steal the keys and sneak out with the keys. They also cut the bridge down.
Yep.
I think it's Poto at the end straight up sacrifices himself to kill the priest. He's the one who actually kills the priest.
Was very upset by that, by the way.
Yeah, that's definitely
I was
the most
legitimately depressed.
Yeah.
Rip Torn killed by a ferret was pretty cool. It's like Monty Python
like that,
the
it's
Holy
awesome.
Grail. You know, like the ferret moves like the rabbit in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where it just shoots out and you see his neck.
Just tearing through his neck, and I'm like, I don't know that they could really do that. If so, maybe I should be more scared of ferrets.
Yeah. Speaking of the ferrets too, with his death, I love that I feel like the writer or the director, whichever made the decision here, where they were like, we'll show the baby ferrets, just to throw you guys a bone. You know, it was kind of like, we had the ferret sacrifice himself, and that's very sad. But here are the children, so take happiness in that.
Yeah.
And I felt cheated regardless.
Poto 2 and 3, you know.
Yeah.
We're all good.
I felt sad, even more sad watching these ferrets now without a father.
Yeah, it was weird watching a movie that is ostensibly very dramatic. And that the most genuinely dramatic thing is that the ferret dies.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's in every movie. Like you see a dog die in a movie, suddenly that's like that's a genre of film now for some reason. Well, I guess it's actually a good thing because like if you're gonna have dogs die in movies, whatever, do what you want. That's your movie because you can't just have dogs dying in regular movies and move on from that.
I will say it's nice that it was like a sacrificial move, like that the priest was going to stab the lead. It's just that I liked the ferret more than the lead. So I was kind of like, I wish you got stabbed a little, bro.
You're not wrong. And then Rip Torn is out of the picture, and then suddenly we're gearing up for the second climax, and this is where John Amos from Coming to America and Die Hard 2 is like now Dar's second in command, and he starts like readying this town for like a siege from the June horde that someone sees on the horizon.
Yeah,
right, and they have the whole city like surrounded by this tar moat of some kind. It seems which they use for the big old.
Yeah, there's a lot of people
strategy.
yelling about a moat for sure.
Yeah, cover the moat because I guess they set it on fire when the Jun horde come, and the Jun leader, which should have been you're building this guy up to be the leader of the Jun. I mean, I feel like Mayax should have been the leader of the Jun, and this guy should have been like his lieutenant that you killed before you killed Mayax, but we're doing it the other way around here.
Yeah, I definitely got to that point, and I was curious if the movie had
a reason,
had earned like a Two Towers type situation where they're like, we finished one battle, let's gear up for the second one. And I was like, I don't know.
For some reason I love this movie. I don't think it's earned at all.
Well, see, this is why we were interested to have you on, because Jamie and I think are both in the same boat that we were not crazy about this one. We definitely had some fun in it, and I mean we also are calibrated to appreciate cheap movies that don't have maybe
studio filter or that,
and don't have performance calibers that you would expect of things that people that can afford more. But we also spend a lot of time looking through the trash, looking for people who found their own unique craft, or who found something. And I was sitting here watching this one, and I was like, this seems just like Conan, but a little more technically inept, a little more sort of less expressive and less moody, with performances across the board that for the most part range from like fine to not working. And the thing that was the most impressive was mostly the animal stuff, and just the straight up goofiness that comes from like the absurdity of some of the premise, the construction, some of the conceived ideas.
Am I correct to assume you guys haven't seen any of the sequels?
We have not seen any of the sequels.
I looked them up after, and I saw that the second one has like a red sports car, and they go back in time. or not back in time, they go forward in time.
They go to 1990. Dar in 1991, hanging out in the city.
What?
Yeah, and I
I'm
believe
definitely
the
gonna
ferrets
check it
are
out.
back.
The ferrets are back, and
even
Mark Singer's
the
in it?
OG ferret, or is he still dead?
I think it's maybe the next. Because
I was hoping that if they had a time machine, they could go back, save the ferret, and then go into the future after that.
Anyway, I'm adding this to my watch list as we speak.
Absolutely.
I'm throwing it on there.
I have not seen Beastmaster 2 in a long time, so I can't tell you for sure. But at the end of this movie, Kodo gives birth, because Kodo's the one that dies, apparently.
Yeah, Kodo's okay.
Yeah.
So the baby ferrets then, I guess, might be the next ones he's hanging out with, and
right.
I can't tell you for sure. And I thought there was only 2 of these movies for my entire life, and I was tweeting about Beastmaster like I often do. This was like last summer, maybe. I was just thinking about Beastmaster, and Keith Tibbs corrected me that there was a third Beastmaster movie, which I've not seen, and it was made for television, but Mark Singer is back as Dar.
He does the trilogy. That's awesome.
Damn. That's commitment.
That's commitment. I like that.
Good for you.
That makes me want to watch it, because the only thing I hate when they get to these deep sequels is when things just kind of just start.
They're just using the title.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that at least the lead Dar guy is still in there, that would make me want to watch them for sure. And the second one, I just saw the premise, and I was like, that might be hilariously awful, and or good. I don't know, but most likely bad, and in the best way possible. So I'm definitely going to check out the second.
I remember the second one being this or lesser, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
By the way, now we get the second climax here. This is where I just want to mention that the Batmen come back and start digesting people, and the Jun are defeated, and now Dar, even though he's the rightful king of this shit mountain or whatever this is, he decides to abdicate his throne and like wander the earth or whatever, and lets this kid they picked up along the way, who is also like his little brother, I believe, be the ruler under John Amos's tutelage.
Yep, and it's the same ending as Conan the Barbarian, where he walks off with the to be continued on other sort of adventures.
I also love how after all this, like it seemed like he was more interested in courting the girl than anything else, even though he was on this vengeance mission.
Yeah,
he just leaves without talking to her at all, like a complete savage, and she has to come up to him and be like, "Yo, what the fuck, man?"
Yeah, dude, I thought we were connecting.
Yeah. I just thought that was also hilarious, and the ending battle between the big Jun guy.
Yeah.
It's the last shot of him is just him being tossed into like a line of fire, but it doesn't show the death or anything. It's just kind of like, you've been tossed into this fire. We now know you are dead because you're off screen. I don't know if you guys also.
No, I did not pick up on that one, but that's interesting.
But that's because when they're battling, I think he probably gives them a stab or something.
So
but
they
he just
definitely
tosses
show
them in the
more
fire.
of the child murder than they do the villain murder. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, actually.
Gotcha.
They definitely do.
This movie was shot by John Alcott, by the way, which blows my mind. That's the guy. That's Kubrick's cinematographer
fucking-
from the 70s and 80s. So he shot Barry Lyndon, he shot Clockwork Orange, he shot The Shining, and later in the 80s he even shot one of our favorite sort of like neon crime ones too. He did Vice Squad, that kind of like really scuzzy, gritty one with shit, what was his name? Wings Hauer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Wings Hauser, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was sitting there going, man, I've seen a lot of John Alcott's movies, and they are all really technically like accomplished films. And I was watching this, and I was like, what happened, dog? What went wrong there? Just on like a shot construction and like editing level and everything. I was like, man. I mean, I guess that's what like just the lack of money will do for you. I mean, I guess they had $8 million. They were probably on a tight schedule to get this done I mean, if they didn't conceive it until after they were already making Conan and they released it the same year as Conan, you could assume that they went pretty fast in development on this one.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. That was what we heard about that. Oh my God. That was what we heard about. Shit. The really bad dude. House of the Dead. What's that guy?
Oh, Yui Boll or something like that.
Yeah, again, hopefully he doesn't add us again.
That was hilarious.
He got really mad at our episode where we talked about House of the Dead, but we mentioned that they greenlit House of the Dead around the time that the marketing campaign came out for Resident Evil, and they released it within like 9 months. And we were like, wow, okay, that's really impressive. It sounds like that's this, but for Conan the Barbarian. And then I will say, though, definitely better than House of the Dead.
Oh, yeah, worlds better. I don't want to compare it to House of the Dead.
Yeah, we won't go that far.
I would say this is better than Resident Evil, but that's me. Have you guys seen the director's other films, the Phantasm series?
I have not seen the Phantasm series, but Jamie's seen the first one.
and I really liked it. It's been a while.
I find them aggressively terrible. I feel like each incarnation gets worse, and it's such an ill-defined mythos as well. I think this is his best movie.
Really?
Nice.
Really, yeah.
Because I mean, I've only seen the first Phantasm, but
well, how many of they? Oh yeah, there's like 4
it.
or 5 of them, right? Wow.
Yeah. There's quite a bit.
God damn.
I think there might be. Yeah, I think there's 5.
Wow. All right. Well, I think we're going to enter the reductive rating round on this one. And for you, Eric, this is the part where we remove all the words, all the nuance, and we reduce the movie to a number between 1 and 5. And also, it's become kind of like the final statement section. So if there's a scene you haven't got to mention, or like any sort of closing statement you'd like to make about the film, this is the place to do it. And I think, Eric, I'm going to let you go first on this one. I want to hear your closing arguments, because I'm stuck between 2 ratings right now.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards 1 though, and I want to hear Eric's case before I make my call. We're in court right now, buddy.
Like I say sometimes on We Hate Movies, it's okay to like a movie, and it's also definitely okay to dislike a movie or even hate a movie. I think I've got nostalgia blinders for a lot of this movie because I just watched it so many times when I was a little shit-eating kid.
Now, did you watch it on VHS or TV or something? Is that
TV, definitely, yeah. I grew up with, like, my parents were one of these weirdos that they got all, like, every cable station imaginable, so I watched all the movie channels and whatnot on repeat, so I saw this movie a ton of times, and I think that's probably why I'm going to rate it pretty high, but it also features Rip Torn in a very weird role for him. He doesn't play a lot of child-murdering high priests.
Not too many.
I think it's got some imagination to it with the Batman creatures. I like the animal stuff. The animal stuff is very engaging. So, you said it's out of 5, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to do 4.3.
Nice.
Damn. All right. Very specific, but we like it. All right. Well, for me, this is going to get, I think I'm going for it. This is going to get a high 2 from me.
Nice.
Because I was leaning towards the 3, but the thing holding me back, I think, and maybe it just might come with either rewatches or further exploring the fantasy genre, because maybe we've just been lucky and we've gone through a lot of like the better fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
But like when I was comparing this to some of the other fantasy stuff that we've done on like every level, I was like, Legend didn't have the best character stuff for me, but I was like, you had Tim Curry hamming it up as like the Satan from Tenacious D, and then you had a really creepily boyish Tom Cruise in like a fairy tale story. And on a technical level, like God, the goblins and the sets and the way that was constructed, it was beautiful. And I was like, so even though I didn't latch onto the characters hugely, I was like, wow, what a production. And that might be having money too. Ridley Scott could probably afford a little bit more. And then when we were watching Conan, I was like, Conan was it wasn't quite as gorgeous as something like that, but it did have sort of like a unique atmosphere and mood to it that was like I found like really melancholy and really brutal. And like, I mean, obviously the violence in that is frequently gory, like when he chops that snake's head off, or when James Earl Jones decapitates his parents, or even in terms of like story construction, that bit where James Earl Jones, I guess we can say this now, gets his followers to commit a midsummer. Where like that stuff really I felt worked. And I mean, especially when we did the Conan episode, which by the way, if you guys haven't heard that one, we did Conan Barbarian, Conan Destroyer a few months back. You should probably check that one out too. But like, there's nothing in this that got even close to mirroring like that amazing crane shot that goes over top of Arnold's like sort of back muscles and head as he's holding James Earl Jones's head, and then it becomes a high angle shot looking down the giant temple set at all of his followers looking in silence. And I'm like, that's just like a mesmerizing image. Whereas when I was watching here, everything seemed really clumsily thrown together, like on an action level, on like the closest this got was like some of the sunset imagery, but again, it was very obviously like California. It wasn't like Conan where they shot in like these amazing Spanish locales, or even what we're about to talk about, KRULL, where they had these amazing like European vistas and stuff. I'm not sure where they got them. It sounded like a little bit of England, a little bit of Italy. It sounded like, but like,
isn't clumsy a little charming sometimes?
It can be. It definitely can be, but for me on this one, I was just like, I wish that everything was working just a little bit more. Like I latched onto the characters a little more, or I latched onto some of the filmmaking a little bit more. But really, all it had going for me was just the technical impressiveness of the animals and the ferrets, and I ripped to a real one, Kodo, for sure.
You were actually being generous in your rating. I understand. You were like, from a technical point of view, absolutely. I agree, but it's still just fun.
Exactly, but see, this is also because I was watching it for the first time as like a jaded, person in their 20s, So sometimes, but it's funny. It's just on this show. Typically, I think people sometimes point it out of us. We're pretty generous, I think, sometimes on stuff when it comes to, because we are calibrated to watch stuff that maybe didn't have money to be able to afford better things, or didn't have the best performances. Like we watched movies where like the performances were probably iffy, but I bought into them. Whereas for some reason with this one, there was just something missing on every single facet of it that it never properly engaged me, and maybe because it was just made for kids.
I do think the priest was good though.
Rip Torn?
Yeah.
Oh, well, he's kind of a weird-looking dude. I think he's fascinating to just look at and watch.
He had a lot to use.
Wait, hold on a second. I saw something on Wikipedia. What I was calling Batman are called Birdmen in here. Okay, fuck this.
Okay. Well, also, that maybe more explains why they listen to the Eagle.
It's all coming together.
Makes a lot more sense. Anyway, so high two for me.
They look reptilian.
Yeah, a little bit.
They do.
Confusing
design. Come on, guys.
I'm also gonna give it the high 2. I was going between the 2 and the 3 throughout the movie, and basically what I was saying, I was pretty on board for most of it. I mean, it definitely is clumsy. I didn't really latch on to many characters, or any characters really, but there was something humorous about it, charming in a way that, I mean, the animal performances are unbelievable. But what did it for me, there was the moment where it was Kodo, is that it?
Yeah.
Kodo, where he sacrifices himself, and I just realized that I would have preferred the lead to get killed over Kodo. And
that was it, you were done.
I kind of was. I was like, I don't feel like I should feel like this.
Well, you're like, there goes the one character I cared about in this whole movie.
And I'm like, because a sacrificial moment should still, obviously it's sad, but you should feel like there's still some triumph in it. And for me, it was just like, I don't care if this guy didn't get stabbed. So it was like, I just would have preferred that not happen. And it just made me realize that I don't think I liked the character at all, really. And it made me
yeah, see,
think,
I would have to go
wanna
back
watch
and
the
see
journey.
even if he like emotes much during that scene where Koto's. I can't remember how much he emotes in that bit.
I don't think he does.
Is it just another blank stare and nod at his burning friend?
I think so, and he just
Could
grabs the other, like the ferret emotes more for his lost friend or lost lover, I guess, because they have babies.
Right.
So, and then when they showed the babies, I was just kind of like, "You've already killed Koto. You can't bring this back." So, it was. I was almost on board, but I just felt like they didn't stick the landing. If they did, I probably would have given it the 3. I just felt like the finale lacked suspense
Also,
with everything that was going on, and yeah.
Teeny bit long.
Yeah, and you know,
second climax probably not necessary.
It is a teeny bit long. I don't think this movie needs to be 2 hours for sure. But honestly, like if someone were to say to me, "Hey, I really like the Beastmaster and I'd like to watch it," I would watch this again and give it another shot because I still had a lot of fun with it.
Oh yeah.
It's just overall, I guess it just didn't do
I
as
want
much.
more of the scenes where like the ferrets were like stealing the arrows from the dude's crossbows.
Yeah, hell yeah. Oh, and a great shot too actually was when during one, I think it was the village battle, an arrow goes into a shield. And then he uses the shield arrow to stab somebody and presses on the shield to get it into the chest. And I thought that was a pretty cool...
There's an action beat for you.
Yeah, there was a
One
cool action
memorable
beat.
action beat.
So there were a couple moments like that. It's just overall, I don't think it stuck the landing. So
Nailed it.
yeah. Still had fun with it, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of criticism for Dar and Mark Singer, which is justified because I related mostly to Mayax, actually. The murderous priest.
The murderous priest, right? Gotcha. Right, I don't know that that's what the movie intended.
I like the murderous priest.
But that is fair. I would agree he is more of a presence to latch on to. And the movie could have used a little bit more of him. All right, well, I think that will wrap it up for Beastmaster. We are going to be right back, and we are going to be talking KRULL.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of an impossible journey, they must fight an invincible enemy.
Is the knowledge you seek?
I shall be your king.
In the fortress, you will face more than the Slayers.
What is about to happen to them could never have happened on Earth. Columbia Pictures presents a world apart from anything you have seen before. KRULL.
All right, we are back, and we are talking KRULL, the 1983 British-American science fantasy swashbuckler. That is the official genre given on Wikipedia.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good combo. I like it. That actually is a great introduction to already why I liked this movie. Actually, if we're gonna jump into it that way.
Aesthetic is awesome.
The film directed by Peter Yates. I ended up just closing that link, but the actor's name, Ken Marshall, I believe. Again, sort of like Mark Singer, didn't end up doing much else. But weirdly enough, I didn't mind him in this. I thought he was perfectly serviceable.
Yeah, I thought he was great.
The facial hair, it's a little too neat, a little too trimmed. I was like, dude, you should, there's a point
We're talking Ken Marshall here?
Yeah, exactly. There's a part. Well, it makes sense at the beginning of the movie.
I was gonna say because he is like very like militarized, put together man.
Very,
that kind of thing.
very princely.
Yeah.
And when he's at his lowest point, the dude he still looks really good. And I was like, damn, dude, you're really gone through hell and back. This one.
Maybe just throw some dirt on his face. Yeah.
He doesn't look that good today. So it all works.
Yeah. Yeah, but I did love that bit where he's like on the stairs having given up in like a pile of corpses, and the thing that they've done to him to make him look like he's like lost and at his lowest point, they just like took his shirt off and like showed off his chest. Yeah, and I was like, nice.
Like, look at my depressed 6-pack abs.
Yeah, he's like, no, everything is ruined. I actually quite enjoyed myself with this movie, mostly because it feels exactly like if they ever let George Lucas adapt Lord of the Rings. That's exactly what this was like. I was watching it and I was like, this is very Tolkien inspired. This is very clearly a blatant Star Wars ripoff on like every level.
Yeah, I mean,
of the plot.
The first thing we see is the two suns, too, just like
even the opening
Tatooine
shot and the Black Fortress as a Star Destroyer.
Yes, it comes in exactly like a Star Destroyer.
Yep.
The Jung Horde, there are slayers in this, which are they shoot lasers and they have swords. It's kind of cool.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah, I love that especially the detail of like they're shooting the laser gun and then they just flip it over and it's the sword part.
Yeah.
That was awesome. That was
it's
great.
killer. Well, yeah. So right off the top, we'll mention this movie is a lot more expensive. You can probably tell.
Yeah.
It cost about triple
Although it definitely
the amount
has its
that
dated
Beastmaster
moments,
did.
but I found them very charming and fun.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I looked it up, and Beastmaster cost like $8 or $9 million, and KRULL, coming out 1 year later, cost $30 million.
Oh wow!
There's a huge budget movie at the time, actually. I think that's more than any of the other fantasy films actually we've talked about. So this is really expensive.
Did it do well? I just imagine that it might.
No, I don't think so.
No, it seemed like a bit of a bomb, but again, sort of like Beastmaster, it had a bit of a life on TV that it picked up on.
Very cool.
It seemed like a lot of people didn't latch on to the characters and the iconography in the same way that people did Star Wars. You know, people weren't buying KRULL toys, unless you can correct us on that, Eric.
I did not. I didn't have a KRULL toy. I wish I did. But that's the thing about this. The expense is like, because this is such an ambitious movie. They really try to drop you in to this conflict that's ongoing, and you have to, just like Star Wars, you got to run with it. Just drop your feet and start running and immerse yourself in this world. And I don't know if people were ready necessarily for cyclopses and vanishing fortresses and all that good shit that's in like a lot of amazing like 70s fantasy novels.
Yeah. Well, and my personal favorite place that they go, the giant spider lair of the ancient slighted spider woman who longs for her lost love.
Definitely an homage to the Two Towers, most likely.
Yeah,
right?
Tolkien. Yeah. Because he had already written those books at the time that this came out too.
Right.
So.
Two Towers. Okay, Tolkien. I thought you guys meant 9/11 for a second.
Obviously, inspired by the events of 9/11.
That trailer for that Spider-Man movie that was between the two towers. Did you ever see that trailer for the Sam Raimi one?
Oh, yeah. I have.
Fantastic.
Yeah, not what I was thinking about watching KRULL, I'll be honest. I wasn't watching this and I was like, man, I'm thinking about 9/11 again for some reason.
Oh god.
But I did really love this movie's combination of like this really like kitschy like space opera meets like high fantasy and like really high fantasy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like really you're thrown in. There's like swords and spears intertwined with spaceships and meteors and prophecies and the knights are in like spacesuits, and then there's stone castles, and then people are also wearing purple velvet and shooting laser beams. And I was like, none of this stuff makes any sense together.
But I'm totally on board.
But the actual work they do in the costume design and the set design and everything really works, and it does help too. We should point this out probably right off the start. Shot by Peter Szyszka, who is the guy who shot Empire Strikes Back and most of Cronenberg's early work.
Right, that's crazy.
So the look of this film...
definitely some more interesting setups than
and also it seems Peter Yates as like a director. I haven't seen a lot of Peter Yates, but...
he did Bullet.
Yeah, I have seen Bullet. I forgot that was him. So yeah,
it's
clearly
crazy.
Just a
Everything
sturdier
about
workman filmmaker, someone who's done a lot of, sort of higher budget films and could put this all together. Although I heard he was really depressed making this movie.
Really?
I think he kind of lost track and they were kind of like rewriting it partially on set, which you could feel a little bit when you get to the back half and how everything kind of like wraps up. But he definitely felt like they were just like, we paid for all these really expensive sets. Now, please just shoot something in it, please. And he was like, okay. And I will say that that's a huge part of why this worked for me, because even when it looks kind of like goofy and artificial, there's still like a strange beauty to that I actually really found
because there's a big attention
worked.
to detail.
Well,
the production design is amazing. Like when we eventually get into the fortress, that the Beast's fortress, who is the main baddie of this film, it's very like it's just gorgeously made. Like the princess who gets kidnapped, standing on this balcony that looks like the Beast's claw, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that. It's such a great visual metaphor. It's awesome.
Yeah, and also there's a bit where she's like in the eye, right?
Yeah.
She's in like a giant eyeball, and like she's the pupil of it.
Yeah.
There's like tons of amazing set work happening here, and even when it's not set and they're sort of like outside and stuff too, like they actually went and got these like beautiful like mountainside vistas, and like these from the top of like these snowy mountains too, where like the fortress teleports.
There's even some great shots of like free climbing and things that, which I mean they get the stunt double obviously, but it's nice. It's a like wide shot. It's real stunts. It's good.
Really gorgeous like widescreen framing and everything too.
Yeah.
You get a real sense of the world here, where in Beastmaster and even like in something like Conan the Barbarian, it's just kind of a dirt set to a next dirt set. And this is just like, you get different locations, different climates, you get caves, you get quests. And another thing amazing about this movie I was thinking about today, I watched it like right before I talked to you guys in the past tense, talking to you guys right now. But it's like an alien invasion of like a Tolkien kind of world.
Yeah.
And that's where the sci-fi element comes into it. It's just very innovative.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. And I loved a lot of the different locations that they take you to. I think, obviously, I really loved the spider lair, but my other favorite one actually was the swamp, which I looked it up because I was like, where did they shoot that? I was like, where is that? 100% a set.
That's awesome.
The entire forest swamp.
That's very
They built
awesome.
it in Pinewood Studios, one of the biggest studios where they shot, like, I think they said they even used the 007 stage, which is obviously known where they shoot a lot of Bond stuff. And it is, like, the biggest shooting stage in Europe, basically.
So they can really
so they literally just built a giant forest swamp and
that's
shot
so
inside
awesome.
of it. And it looks amazing.
Yeah, and even some really creepy shots, like the bad guys emerging out of the swamp water.
The Slayers like coming
battle.
out of it and stuff. Yeah, the bad guys are also called Slayers,
which is so metal. So metal.
Yeah, and the main bad guy is just the Beast. Yeah. So
Excellent.
yeah, there's a lot of world building and a lot of world to actually explore in this. So that's why, like, even though again like the character stuff isn't super compelling in this, I would still say I still think it's an upgrade on Beastmaster.
Oh yeah.
But like even if it wasn't, like there's just so much more visual detail and richness to this that like even if I wasn't absorbed in Ken Marshall's eyes, I'm sitting here watching him move through these amazing locations and confront these amazing like different situations. Like I really, really liked the spider's lair bit where she's like an old woman who feels slighted by like a lost love that she couldn't have, and then there's this really like genuinely beautiful and melancholy moment where the guy who is this movie's version of Obi-Wan
definitely
goes in there and says that I'm here helping like a young prince who's had his entire like castle massacred and his queen like kidnapped by a monster, and I'm helping these two young lovers like reunite. And the spider is obviously moved by that because she misses the relationship that she had with him, and she's like this old woman, but then she starts being able to re-envision herself as how he sees her, which is like sort of like the younger, more beautiful version. And at first that effect takes place only in the mirror and not on the actress. And then she turns around and it's her. And I'm sitting here going, wow, just the visual conception and construction of this is actually, and the emotion of it is so clear. And well done. And I was like, wow, watching, and I queued up this immediately after Beastmaster, and I was like, wow, this is just like what the difference between directing is. This is just
absolutely. Also tying the films together, she mentions that they had a son together and she killed the baby like right after it was born. So there's also child murder. She just needed a victim. She just needed a victim for the rage she felt of that love being lost. So it's a little different, but hey, it's there. They're killing kids.
Yeah,
that's
true.
The correlation between
I
the two movies.
actually, while I was distracted by how beautiful that moment was, I also did completely forget that they undermine it slightly, and sort of maybe not undermine, they complicate it slightly by saying that, I was so upset about it, I murdered our child.
My bad.
Yeah, wasn't great, but
By the way, the attention to detail, like you guys mentioned, the attention to detail. Like, compare the religions, like the Joan priest or whatever. He's just throwing a kid into a fire. Why? I don't know. Don't like it. And it's like you get the marriage ceremony, and this is like Lord of the Lights shit from like George R.R. Martin, because it's like, I will take the fire from the water, and it shall not be returned except by the woman who chooses my hand. And she says, like, I take the fire from the water and give it only to my man who decides to be my husband. And they're passing the fire back and forth, and it's just this religion you're supposed to accept.
Yeah. And something I also found interesting about the wedding ceremony was, instead of like music as they were walking up to the altar, it was just military men banging on their shields as hard as they could, and I guess it set the tone too for like and it was cool. It kind of set the tone for just how the kingdom is run, because at the end of the day, they're definitely still like a monarchy. Yeah. I think. Well, you know what? I'll save that for the end. But
when they get there,
right? Because there's a specific part where the narrator says something, and it's something that an evil person says in another movie that this is clearly referencing. So we'll get to that. But
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the main crux of it is, obviously, I don't even think we mentioned the plot yet, but the main like actual plot is just that Ken Marshall is a prince, and he's marrying the princess. And they do get married, and they are going to be the next king and queen, and they are technically king and queen for the rest of the movie, because they are their entire castle is massacred by the Beast and Slayers. They kidnap the princess, and
but
actually,
she didn't get a chance
the action set piece is great.
Transfer the flame.
Oh, she didn't get the chance to do it yet.
So I don't know if it's like official,
but they still name him king.
That's true. Yeah. They're just kind of like, we'll do it later. We'll do all the paperwork.
We're not going to fuck you on a technicality, dude. Like, don't worry about it. Like, king, you were basically king, like, it's good. We need someone to basically be king, But the actual set piece itself of the Slayers infiltrating the castle and fighting with the swords and the lasers and stuff, like, it's quite well done, and they actually do. Like, that's where the swashbuckling gets in, and they start actually doing these well choreographed, like, sword fighting scenes and stuff like that.
The Slayers, just like, they're able to run up the walls of the castle. They're like, it's nothing. They're able to burst down the gates instantly. So you get a sense of why this entire planet's almost enslaved by the Beast at this point.
Like that bit's actually really creepy when they're walking through the gates, and I don't actually know 100% how they did this shot, because you get in the right side of the frame to the left, they are like marching into the castle, fighting people and fucking them up. But just as a side detail, there are people like scaling the walls, like Slayers moving up the walls. And like, I don't know if they just used wires and like pulled them up or something, but like they're doing it in a really inhuman, like creepy way that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. You know what? A wizard did it.
Exactly. And also, I actually think that the way that they kill the Slayers is so much more gruesome than anything also that was in Beastmaster.
Yeah, it almost
for a kids
feels
movie.
like because they have these,
like
I guess they're like aliens that come out of the bodies themselves or something. It feels like a decapitation in a way, because even blood comes out and stuff. So it's very visceral and violent.
They like kill them, and it like cracks their skull open.
Yeah,
with like a laser, and then like this weird like bloody bug like intestine.
Thing,
like just kind of like writhes around in pain. And you're just
also PG.
Yeah, also for the kids.
Gotta love it.
Boobs and decapitation.
And it does capture them as like this kind of like strange like infection or something like that. And it's really bloody and it's really gross. And then the rest of the movie kind of hinges on Ken Marshall playing the prince or the king, learning to become kingly through Obi-Wan.
That's so important, because it's like Dar's is like, whatever, dude, I've got a dog, I've got a cat, giant cat. This is like, he needs to like go through these quests in order to be worthy enough to save the princess, kill the Beast, which is like, and finding the glaive is one of the big ones, going into this cave,
Right.
dipping his hand into this lava to pull
he
it
needs
out.
to be the best version of himself so that he can use the fucking giant fidget spinner with knives on it
Right.
to win the day.
And there's even like a difference there where we see how the characters do progress as characters as opposed to with Dar.
Yeah.
Where like he starts kind of hot-headed a little bit. I think the Obi-Wan character has a line where he says bravery is an important attribute, but courtesy is much more significant. Something like that.
Well, yeah, he said bravery just isn't the only attribute of a
Yes,
king,
that's what it
right?
was.
He's like, there's
Right.
others that
So
you
just
can do.
in that regard, you can see some actual character progression, which is nice to not just have this like hothead that's just completely, stoic in his characteristic. Like he's actually going to change. He's not just going to be like this guy that I'm already the hero. I don't need to do anything else.
Yeah,
Exactly.
a lot of Beastmaster is just Dar having things happen and not changing in any capacity.
Exactly.
Just realizing that now, basically. But I do like the scene where he goes into the cave and he pulls out the glaive from like the weird like upside down like lava thing is in there.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
I guess that also that shows that he's kind of like a chosen one of some kind
Well, yeah,
too, because he's able to reach into the lava.
Yeah, and I
so-
was curious because I was like, when the lava got in there, and I was like, did I miss something? Did he just like go into a volcano or something? But no, it's in a cave.
Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah.
oh, all right, okay, that's just whatever. This is the planet
This is the
KRULL. That's the
planet,
planet, right? Yeah. And yeah, the rest of the movie is really, really basic. It's him picking up a bunch of companions, a lot of like sort of like local peasants, a cyclops,
With Liam Neeson, baby.
a wizard,
Yeah.
I had no idea I was gonna see Neeson
a
in
young
this.
Liam Neeson and Robbie Coltrane.
Yeah.
Two actors who would obviously, go on.
You're
do a
about
lot
to
of
you're about to
stuff.
be taken by the beast. Call it any tattoos you might see.
Yeah. No, Liam Neeson wants nothing to do with that shit. Liam Neeson's like, dude, I'm fucking poor as shit. I mean, I'd just rather rob you.
Yeah.
You know?
I want to rob
Hey,
people and
interesting.
have my several wives. Of
Also, Liam Neeson is like a big ladies' man. That's a,
Yes.
that's
Oh,
a
yeah.
subplot. That's a
course
Well,
he is.
I wonder how to read this actually, because he's like the leader of their pack says like, oh, he's got like 7 or 8 wives across the entire like realm, and
Yeah.
he travels a lot, so it works out. It's like, are they wives? Is it just victims? Like,
And I love how he also has that line where he's like, faithful is my middle name. Simultaneously after we just got that information that he's just like hoeing himself through 7 different planets.
No, yeah, and that's where we get him kind of going on all these different trials. That's where we get him going through sort of like the swamp forest, where we get the Slayers like very sort of like moodily rising out of the water again in a way that physically doesn't make sense, but is super creepy as like an actual image.
Yeah.
by then they've hooked up with a seer, this like old wizard dude who can predict through his visions where the fortress will appear, because they can't just go storm the fortress and get the princess back, because it vanishes and reappears in different places.
Right, and the seer, he starts by using like a green jewel or whatever, right? But then like the hand of the beast like infects the frame and like crushes it
Yeah.
right in front of them and
Which
everything.
is great.
Yeah, which is like again another just like, it's a pretty simple scene, a simple idea, and the effect is a little cheesy, but like for some reason, as like just a piece of like mood, it actually does end up like really working for me. And I actually think a huge reason, which I don't know that we mentioned yet, we should. James Horner scored this film. Famous for obviously he did Titanic, he did Braveheart, did a lot of huge scores, went on to have a
Very
huge
big,
career.
yeah.
And there's
Very
like this
epic
really
films, too.
melodramatic, like orchestral thing going on here, but it's weirdly infected by like these moments of like strange, almost like experimental uses of like strings, and there's also like wind chimes and like these choirs and stuff happening in there
Yeah.
too, and it works really well because he has to do a different score for like every goddamn location.
Yeah, because that's one thing too. Like the sets are so different, so he really had to kind of capture the mood of each thing. They go to quite a few different places that are very different.
Yeah, and then when they're outside, storming the mountains, and then when they're in the Black Fortress, both outside of it, where it's this giant black rock that's meant to sort of be imposing and sort of doom-like, but also be this movie's version of a Star Destroyer. And the inside of it, though, is like this weird, like intestinal, like labyrinth, which also looks kind of amazing.
It kind of looks like an ear canal or something.
Yeah, yeah. Like
it's like organic somehow.
Which is interesting because when we combine actually all the different things that we see of it, it does feel like a creature of some sort, because there's the part where she's in the eye. There's another scene too where she approaches she's thinking about like jumping out, I think, and it looks like she's in like the mouth, like there's like teeth, and it's like opening and closing and stuff like that as she's like thinking about like trying to like jump out or something.
Her cell really does feel alive. And there's even, I thought that there was a really creepy image of when she goes and she sees like a bridge to escape, but even that design is very weird and scary. It's like a dark red, like it seems like it's almost set in hell itself or something like that, and there's these odd guards that are blocking her way. So yeah, it's that cell does feel like alive almost throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Also, a great moment that happens in there is when the Beast appears to her as Ken Marshall, but with red eyes.
Oh, it's funny. This is exactly the scene I wanted to get to, too.
Oh, great.
Because I actually thought this was actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie, because not only does he do that, but then there's also this amazing cross-kiting set piece that they do, where he is trying to sort of like woo the princess, and trying by mostly just exposing sort of Ken Marshall's prince as like a dickbag, trying to be like, he's just trying to be like, well, he's already forgotten about you.
Great? Well, why don't you look at him right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Do it right now.
Yeah,
and it's a whole honeypot. He sets up like a honeypot where he says like, all right, I'm the Beast. I'm going to get some sexy ladies down to their camp, and we'll see how pious this guy is.
Yeah, it's so convoluted of a plan for the Beast. But yeah, when they, because he's sort of has a hired woman down there trying to woo Ken Marshall, and he's broadcasting it to the princess, trying to be like, look, he's already trying to like cheat on you or whatever. And then he, obviously the prince, he's so good. He's like, I cannot, I am already committed to another.
I have my love.
Yeah. This is very very proper and British in comparison to American fantasy, which is has its own
contrast,
charm.
we have the Beastmaster who almost sexually assaults the girl that he falls in love with. Jesus, that's so funny.
Americans drive like this. Brits drive like this. That's what this double feature is.
Oh God!
And yeah, as soon as he turns her down, immediately she tries to like murder him. She's like, well, fuck you. I was being paid by the Beast. And I was like, okay, so now we're establishing that there's an economy of like that like people will betray the human race for the Beast under his rule, even though we've seen no version of humans under him yet. So I was trying to figure out like, was she just being brainwashed, or was she like one of the weird intestine creatures inside of her? I couldn't figure out exactly what was going on there.
Yeah, it's a good question. Now, if we got the sequels we deserved,
yeah,
we could have
right.
maybe explored that. Like maybe there's a rival kingdom somewhere that still has like battlements for the Beast or whatever, you know, like
exactly. Where's the poor society that was just like, we're just gonna align with the Beast because he'll kill us.
Yeah, we need that cash, bro.
No, seriously though, like what happens if a black fortress comes from outer space, lands on Earth, the Beast comes out? Well, someone's joining the Beast. Probably the United States of America. But people are joining the Beast for power, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I loved the cross-cutting in that scene because that scene is playing out, and we're cutting back to the swamp where, you know, they're killing this woman or trying to like take this woman out away from trying to kill the prince, and that plan obviously didn't go well at all for the Beast, who the princess is watching it being like, hey, the prince is still a really cool guy.
Yeah, gotcha.
I actually like him more now.
Yeah. Good job, Beast. Fucking nailed it, dude.
By the way, this movie's got a comedic relief character, which is actually not that awful. Like he's Argo the Magnificent, a wizard that turns into animals. So it's really a great vessel for us to get more animals.
Yeah,
I also love his introduction, both with himself and then the Cyclops, where it just has the shot of him leaving the prince or the king to be, and he travels up a hill and just sees a cyclops, and it just stares at him in the darkness in the forest, and then he just walks back like, nope, fuck that. And I love either way it would have worked for me. I do love that they fleshed out the cyclops and that he becomes quite
Part of
a
the gang,
significant
yeah.
part of it. But I also would have loved if it was just like
never
an
went
off
back.
gag, like it was just some dude, like a cyclops, just staring, and he's like, "Fuck that."
Yeah, they were
'Cause
like-
it is terrifying a little bit.
He
It's
comes back
scary
to the
and
prince.
humorous.
He's just like, yeah, dude, that plan about going north. Yeah, we're going northwest.
This actually reminds me, now I just remembered the Cyclops. This is weird, and I think Cyclops should be cooler than this, so this is kind of maybe almost a flaw in this film, where the Cyclops apparently were invented by the Beast. They were a group of men who joined with the Beast, and they took one of their eyes in exchange to see the future, but the only future they could see is their own death, so it's like a
What the fuck?
That's the deal with the Beast. You can't make it.
That's the most fucked up shit I've ever heard.
That because it's like a quick line. Yep, that's what the fucking Cyclops are, and maybe it's anti-Cyclops propaganda. I don't know.
Yeah, but then it goes even a little further because I think the young kid that shows up eventually explains that the Cyclops, if he doesn't fulfill his destiny and die where he's supposed to die, then he just feels excruciating pain. So he has to basically die.
Existence is pain.
Yeah, exactly. So he has to sacrifice himself or do what he has to do according to the vision, or he feels excruciating pain. So either way, this is just it wasn't the best deal.
He gets crushed by a doorway, so I think he felt extreme pain either way.
Good point.
Yeah, I gotta say, there's something really bizarre to me about the sort of like childlike, like fairy tale storybook kind of quality that this is clearly aiming for.
Yeah.
Similar to Legend. When we talked about Legend, we talked about that quality that it kind of had to it. And this one also merges that, though, with like these concepts that are like really existential and scary when you actually think about them for a second.
That's very adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I could think of watching these two movies. I'm like, I can't believe these are geared towards younger audiences.
Even the relationships are a little mature because like the relationship between the prince and the princess, like they have like genuinely like adult flirtation and stuff in there as well, like before she even gets kidnapped. And I was like, God damn, dude, kids were watching some fucked up stuff. Not that they are now. I'm not sure what else they can get now. I mean, but yeah, as we sort of pivot into like sort of like the climax, because we did talk about the Widow of the Web stuff, but that is an amazing scene as well.
I believe she also has the name of the princess of like Lissa. They have the same name,
right? Yeah. So the king named her after the ancient.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I thought it was a real like we're out of Bort license plates. And
what a coincidence! Yeah. No, because I think that's part of what the Obi-Wan dude says to her is that like to try and persuade her to help reunite these young lovers, because they were like, "Wouldn't you wish that someone did this for us?" kind of deal.
There's like
that someone reunited these young lovers, and I was like, "She has your name," type deal. Even
now,
so,
that is perfect contrast between these films. Now, KRULL is like a rich text. The more you watch it, I feel like the more you'll pick up on little things like that. With BEASTMASTER's pretty straightforward.
Exactly. Yeah, so despite the fact that it's like silly, there's still like a weird like they've clearly conceptualized this. They've thought it through, and even if it is a little like kitschy and silly and obviously aimed at children, there's still some depth happening here, and there's like actual craft and detail to it as well. So like I found this just a lot more rewarding of a film. And the one thing that did let me down, which is where we'll get to here, I did feel like they kind of whiffed the ending a little bit. Maybe not the direct ending, but just like the climax. It is a really cool set piece, and it's pretty brutal, where the entire team raids the Black Fortress. And the exchange of the fire from the beginning, just to kind of wrap that up, I thought was very good too. Exactly. Like I thought there was some good stuff happening there. I just felt, and maybe this is just maybe the dated effects of it and stuff like that, that it kind of just ends with the dude like throwing the fidget spinner at the guy on a green screen, and then they kind of call it a day, and they do exchange the fire back and forth, but like the actual drama of that scene, I was like, oh, he reached the Beast. I actually thought like the Beast was gonna like talk with him, there was gonna be some sort of
we're not so different, you and I.
Not even that, maybe even just like a weird like troll riddle or something. Like I thought something dramatic was gonna happen
where
there.
He's like the doppelganger of him, and I was expecting there to be a cool scene where maybe they talk to each other as that guy, and there's almost like like I'm talking to an evil version of myself or something like that, or just something along those lines.
Well, because they're trying to talk about the morality of rule, right? Because his kingdom looks a lot grimmer than hopefully what this prince, who has hopefully been raised right by Obi-Wan, will be a better king and whatnot. They're supposed to be competing in that sense.
You guys are slightly underselling this climax because he gets a fucking flamethrower arm. Fire everywhere. They eventually even use the flamethrower arm to bust out of the castle at the very end.
Yeah,
And it's actually a nice moment too with the princess, because he realizes, oh wait, I can't defeat the beast. We have to defeat the beast. They finish their marriage vows. He gets the fire.
Right.
hand,
Yeah. No, that's good.
Which is apparently a big part of their religion. They can just shoot fire after you get married.
Yeah, I feel like they undersold that element of the movie early on.
I wouldn't say that it's like I did enjoy this finale, but I just would have liked, after having that scene with the beast, I would have liked something where
like more
there's
with
actual
the beast.
discussion between the lead and the beast, and just flesh that out a little bit more or something like that, because I felt like he gets there and the beast is just this giant goblin,
the power of love,
and then he just throws the knife and you know, between him and the beast, I just felt there could be more. But the finale overall, I thought was very effective.
Oh yeah, like the set piece to get to the beast is
the set piece itself is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, when they burn the whole thing down.
Tunnel?
Yeah, the spike tunnel.
That was great.
Someone gets brutally killed by that, right?
Oh yeah, stabs
person.
right through. Yeah.
I really like how we get members of this posse he wrangles dying one by one, trying to get through this castle, get through its armaments. Robbie Coltrane's in this briefly. He gets like shot in the gut or whatever on the steps to the castle, and we get people being impaled on spikes. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and they start dropping left and right. I mean, we have the scene like
all the
Liam
different
Neeson's
tunnels
like,
and
"Tell
stuff,
Martha I love her," and like the other guy was like, "It was worth the journey. Finish it," like that kind of thing. You know, I did start feeling a little more. I'm like, oh, I do care about these guys. That's nice.
Yeah, and the abstract like imagery of the Black Fortress itself as they're going through the different parts of it, like it's very. I almost thought about Holy Mountain while I was watching it. Like I was like, Jesus Christ,
layers.
Like who came up with this? Who storyboarded this?
I also love the shot of him breaking the wall with the flamethrower, and it shows a side view of the mountain and the flame just shooting out of the mountain. That was fucking awesome.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't say that like the set piece like overall works. I think for me it was mostly just kind of like the character climax of the film. Like I did feel like overall the journey of the film was pretty derivative of like things like Star Wars, things like this, where it was kind of like they did it, and it still works because I mean you don't have to change it up.
Can't have too much of a good thing.
Exactly.
The tertiary characters are much better defined in this film. Like Alan Armstrong's character Torquil, who's like the leader of this band that he first recruits to go storm this castle. He's got like these. He's in irons from being arrested or whatever, and he refuses to take them off until they succeed on the quest. And then at the very end, which is pretty interesting, like immediately, like I got the princess here, but let me give these keys to this dude so he can get out of this human bondage situation. And he like still doesn't want to get out of these bindings. But then he gets made the Lord Marshal, the guy who keeps the key. So I guess he's like the sheriff of Nottingham, but in a good way now.
Yeah. Also, I think the visuals of that, just in the field, having the fortress being destroyed and then lifting up instead, like it doesn't just blow up. It starts kind of like there's no gravity and it starts going into space itself. And having them just on the field sitting and watching this giant spectacle was really effective. And the effects are pretty good actually for the most part in that section.
Yeah, because the castle doesn't belong in the world, so it's being removed.
Yeah, and I loved that imagery. The one thing though here, this was what I was speaking on at the beginning of our talk here, was at the end the narration says something like, and they ruled the galaxy for all eternity or something like that. And I was like, all these homages to Star Wars, and you use the Dark Lord Emperor's thing like, to signify the good guys are in control. I just thought that was kind of funny. It doesn't take away from the film at all. I just thought it was an interesting
and
thing.
funny enough, this came out the same year as Return of the Jedi.
Right, so it's just like we will rule the galaxy, and then instead we have a narrator just like, and they ruled the galaxy.
I mean, the movie also starts with like it's like if the prophecy is true, a girl of ancient name, I guess that you're right, that's the widow of the Webb's name, right? Shall become queen, and she shall choose a king, and together they shall rule the world, and their son shall rule the galaxy.
Right. Yeah, and I just thought that was funny to have like them do the evil thing, but this time it's for the good guys. So don't worry, guys. Their monarchy will be fine.
Yeah, they had all the power and control and money. Don't worry about it, though.
Yeah, they'll do great.
This was a movie about how they became good people. This is
exactly.
on the way there.
better than the chaos of the beast, I guess.
Exactly.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think we'll angle towards the reductive rating round on this one. For me, this is gonna get the high 3. I'm thinking about the 4. I'm close on it. I think I need another rewatch on it for sure.
Yeah.
But I did latch on to obviously the look of this film hugely, because it does have that kind of the same issue I kind of had with Legend, which was just kind of I didn't get too involved in the kind of like childlike fairy tale aspects of the film. Like it's a little simple,
we kind of know
derivative.
the fantasy beats,
we know this stuff.
Yeah.
But similarly to Legend, like the world is actually pretty intoxicating.
Yeah, they just flesh out everything.
Yeah, and the sort of like anamorphic cinematography and the sort of like in-camera effects with some lighting filters, it's a very good looking movie in comparison to like we just talked about Beastmaster, which had kind of like crude compositions and really sort of poor editing along the way. Also, it had 3 times the budget, so in fairness to Beastmaster, that helps. But, just, again, this did feel directly like Star Wars, George Lucas style film meets like Lord of the Rings, Tolkien style universe. Literally, as Eric actually cogently pointed out, it's like literally a fantasy world being invaded by space aliens.
Yeah.
So like that actually, it doesn't get more literal than that, as sort of space opera meets high fantasy, and it doesn't even have to blend them that much together. It's almost like they're fighting each other. But again, the sort of organic layer of the beast and how sort of both beautiful and grotesque it is, and all of the different situations and locations that they go to on this quest with all the bandits and peasants and wizards, and again the giant spider's lair. Just like and again the score, I really like the score too. So like on a technical level and in terms of sort of like conception of the world, this was like a super easy watch, considering it was the same length of Beastmaster. Like this flew by for me in comparison. So yeah, I gotta say, going with the high 3 on this one, I think.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna do the same. I could see this becoming the 4.
Shit! Sorry, before you go, fire mares, right?
Yes. The horses.
We didn't mention the horses that have fire feet.
To the Iron Desert in time, they have to go get these Clydesdales that are known to be they're fire Clydesdales. It's fucking great, though.
They call them fire mares.
They ride these horses. You see the fire under their feet like it's Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Great.
Rules.
I was actually
anyway.
going to mention them as a reason
I
like
you?
this movie.
Okay.
Because I love that shot too. Well, one, seeing Liam Neeson on a fire horse was just something
That's
I didn't know
shit.
I wanted to see, but
that's
I'm
good
glad I
shit.
have.
Yeah.
And then also that shot of them going over the cliff, and you have kind of the all the horses and then the fire trail itself as they're floating like reindeer, but from hell or something.
Yeah, very visually inventive.
Yeah, very, very cool. But yeah, I thought that this was awesome in the sense that they really thought about the lore of the world they wanted to create. Like there's just set piece after set piece, and there's a lot of detail. And I mean, for you to tell me that swamp section is like a complete stage, that's just impressive. It felt very authentic. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a fun adventure, and I'll give it the high 3. I could expect this to get to the 4. I think I need a rewatch, and I don't know if some of the cheese holds me back a little bit, but regardless, I really like it.
It's a
so.
kids movie from the 80s.
Yeah, exactly,
what are you gonna
exactly.
do?
I'm gonna say cheese is good and go
yeah.
5 out of 5. Now,
Well, yeah,
it's
you gotta
not-
go for the
you're
5. Well, if
going
you went
to 5?
4.3 on
Beautiful.
Beastmaster, come on, dude. This is obviously a 5 on whatever
Well,
scale
here's
that
the
is.
thing. Is this movie as good as something like Star Wars or Phantom Thread or whatever else? No. Neither is Beastmaster, but like I think this movie is fun. It's innocuous enough. It's unoffensive. It's got beautiful world building, and I think it's got just so much repeat value. And it's not. None of these movies that we talked about today are the best movies ever made, but I really latched onto KRULL ever since I was a kid, more so than the Beastmaster because of that rich universe that they made.
Hell yeah. Well, that sounds good. I think that will wrap it up for this week's show. That was Beastmaster 1982 and KRULL 1983. Thanks as always for listening, guys. Eric, this is the part of the show where if you've got anything to plug, you can do it right here.
Oh, yeah. So I'm on a show called We Hate Movies.
Maybe you've heard of it.
Well, maybe you haven't. Check it out, whmpodcast.com. You can find us on iTunes or wherever you get podcasts. Also, like we said at the top, I am embarking on a weird quest that's going to take me. I think I've mapped it out because we've been doing like one a month basically on TJ Hooker, going episode by episode on TJ Hooker, which is, if you don't know, it's William Shatner's show he did after Star Trek, where he's a proto-fascist policeman in a fictional Los Angeles. Like everyday USA city that's not specifically called Los Angeles, but it's shot in Los Angeles. Me and my buddy Ben Worcester go through it episode by episode, and it is ridiculous. And you can find it at tjhookerpodcast.com.
Sweet. Well, I'm definitely going to be checking that out. For you guys, I think in 1 week's time, we are going to be back with a patron exclusive episode for you bonus listeners. We are going to be taking on someone recently passed away by the name of Rutger Hauer. Yeah. And we were sad to hear about it and sad that we have yet to talk about him on this show.
Yeah,
so
real.
That was a huge blind spot for us. So we are making up for lost time, and we are going to do a old school Paul Verhoeven double feature. We are going to do Soldier of Orange from 1977, his sort of Dutch World War II film about a bunch of friends who experience love and loss in World War II. Yeah, they experience World War II. Fucking sucks. Yeah, and we're going to be pairing it with Paul Verhoeven's 1985 film, his first English language film, Flesh and Blood, which is a bit of a left turn from Soldier of Orange and a little bit more of the Verhoeven you know and love in terms of grisliness and grotesqueness.
He has to play such a complicated character. It's
yeah,
insane.
Rutger's got one role ahead of him, especially for that one.
I can't believe he pulled it off.
So we're going to be talking about Soldier of Orange, Flesh and Blood. Again, patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast if you guys want to hear that one. But in 2 weeks' time, I think this time, we are going to have Will Menaker on the show, Chapo Trap House, and we are going to follow up our John Frankenheimer Patreon episode that we just did of Materian Candidate in Seconds, and we are going to be talking more John Frankenheimer, but we're going to be talking about his car movies, sort of.
Just one of them.
One of them's a car movie, and, well, I think this is the double feature. Ronin, 1998, has some sweet William Friedkin-esque car chases in it.
That's true.
By the way, guys, I just rewatched it. Man, it is good.
It's so good. It's unbelievable. I've already watched it. My God.
In the 90s, when I first watched that movie, I was like, this is boring. Baby, where's KRULL? Where's Beastmaster?
Yeah.
But I watched it now, and it is fucking great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I am actually going to rewatch it because I feel like I missed
Me too.
details in those set pieces, because some of those set pieces, just so much is happening, and the controlled chaos of it that Frankenheimer gets in there, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But we're going to be pairing it with his 1966 film Grand Prix.
3 hour Formula One.
3 hours of Formula One,
Yeah,
and
boy.
dudes being real sad about Formula One.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's pretty old school Hollywood melodrama type thing,
Cool.
but with a bunch of dudes who really want to kill themselves in fast moving machines.
And I've heard incredible cinematography.
Yeah,
so.
and the cinematography of the actual racing sequences, even today, is unbelievable. So in
Sweet.
1966, where
Very
they showed
cool.
it to you in Cinerama, which is like that would have blown people's fucking minds.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about in 2 weeks' time for all listeners. But that will wrap it up, I think, for this week's show. Thanks, as always, for listening, and keep it sleazy.
Keep it sleazy.